This is the Dreadful Podcast from TV Podcast Industries, and we're watching Penny Dreadful, City of Angels, Episode 4, Josefina and the Holy Spirit.
You know, Elsa, my husband, your friend, Dr. Craft, he's not who he pretends to be, dear. Ask him about Elsa. Ask about his family. Shh, just between us girls. Before you start measuring the drapes, find out who he really is. You know, just between us girls. My dear, I will not let you turn me into anything so banal as the rejected wife.
Welcome back, fellow Penny Faithful. This is TV Podcast Industries, and we're talking about Penny Dreadful, City of Angels, Episode 4, Josefina and the Holy Spirit. I'm one of your hosts, Derek.
Hi-dee, hi-do, hi-da, fellow Dreadfuls and Dreaders. Welcome. Yes, I am one of your other hosts, John.
And rounding out the trifecta, not the trifecta, the trifecta.
Oh, no.
I am Chris.
It still hasn't stopped. We're 4 episodes in, and we still haven't gotten Chris to stop his impersonations of a German accent.
Nine.
Well, we are certainly going to have the alignment of the stars and the broken crystal as Chris does a rendition of the German beer hall song in both his best German accent along with his best singing. So it will be
dreadful.
It will. It will fit with the Dreadful Podcast really, really nicely.
And fellow Penny Faithful, if you don't hear Chris's version, it's because I probably edited it out.
Because it was too racist. Yes, thank you so much. I am probably not going to be doing it. I would love to, but I'm afraid all the crystalware in every house of our listeners would break. Not because of the vocal cords and the sound waves, the frequency that I sing at. No, just you would be basically breaking it to try and gouge out your ears because of the sound.
Ooh, gruesome. Well, welcome back, everybody. If you haven't subscribed to the podcast, again, just to mention it, you can subscribe over on tvpodcastindustries.com to subscribe to our feed for all of our podcasts and all the things we've been covering. One thing to mention, we know that not all of our listeners are watching Penny Dreadful, City of Angels at the moment, so we have gone out to our Patreon group and we have said that we are going to cover a movie over there and go back to the movies. We were supposed to be going to watch Marvel's Black Widow this month, and unfortunately, obviously, it has been pushed back, so we are going to do a movie. We gave some options to our Patreons. We said we'd cover one of 4 films and gave them the choice. We had the options of Joker, Wonder Woman, Captain America, Winter Soldier, or Iron Man 2.
Iron Man 2?
No, I was trying to think of ones that had Black Widow in them, and that's her first introduction to the Marvel Universe.
That is true.
I thought that was it. You are right with your reaction, though. We got 0 votes for for Iron Man 2, so we won't be covering that.
But it's so cheesily good. Justin Hammer, Whiplash, the Formula 1 section in Monaco. Come on, it had some classic moments.
I think it paled in comparison to most other MCU movies because it was setting up other films rather than being a great film in itself at the time. But I think looking back on it probably will be quite good.
Yeah, maybe. I think controversially, I am a big Iron Man 3
Oh, that's
fan.
a much better film. Definitely. Much better film.
Shane Black is still
exactly.
like Kiss Kiss Bang Bang all the way down to Iron Man. But yeah, no, I still like Iron Man 2. Yeah. I know it's not controversial. It's still not like Thor the Dark World level, but it's good. It's up there. It's RDJ as well.
But we will get there at some stage. But
yes,
on the request of our Patreons, we're not going to be covering that.
No,
so it did,
no one else wants to see.
Exactly. It did come out as a joint vote, though. So the 2 films that our patrons have chosen for us to do are Captain America, Winter Soldier, and Wonder Woman. What we're going to do is we're going to do Captain America, Winter Soldier first. We're going to release that within the next month over on our Patreon. For our patrons, you can go over there to patreon.com/TV Podcast Industries. Contribute any amount, you'll get access to that podcast. And then we're going to do the Wonder Woman review or look back before Wonder Woman gets released, the second Wonder Woman movie.
Yes, Wonder Woman 1984. Yes, I saw a few bits and bobs there. I don't know why we didn't do Wonder Woman to begin with, because it was a film I came out really buzzing about. I really enjoyed it. Same with the Joker, which was one of the other films. Yep. So yes, we've got a few little things. Obviously, with the relatively blank Marvel slate at the moment for TV. That we will sort of go and do some of those movies that we haven't been able to, or we didn't get round to doing at the time.
Absolutely.
Yes, and of course, obviously, by supporting us at any value, you're helping keep the lights on, keeping the servers going, and just keeping our mics warm. So, and of course, any and all appreciation for any amount, but also you can just share our podcast, leave a like, or subscribe, and or just leave us a review, because sharing the podcast is sharing the love if you cannot support us financially.
Absolutely. You can also email us to feedback@tvpodcastindustries.com if you have any thoughts or any requests for things that we may cover in the future, at least movies anyway. We have a few TV shows that we'll be covering, definitely, but one-off movies, sure, why not? Pop us in an email.
Yeah, it's not like we're doing anything else.
Yeah, absolutely. And of course, with that email, feedback@tvpodcastindustries.com, don't forget about our dreadful pub quiz and the pub quiz questions at the end of each episode of Penny Dreadful City of Angels. We take a trip to the Crimson Cat on many a time, and dare I say it, the winking Crimson Cat. It winked in this episode, which was quite nice. I had to do a double take, but we do go to the Crimson Cat for our pub quiz question, to ask a question about that episode. So you can send in your answers each week or all together in one batch at the end of the series to the feedback@tvpodcastindustries.com. And of course, one lucky dreadful listener will get some Penny Dreadful goodies. And while I'm on that note, the Penny Dreadful City of Angels store is now open on showtime.com/store. Yes. So we will be trawling that to see what drinking goodies we will pick out for the lucky winner of the dreadful pub quiz. Dare I say it, it could be a life-size version of a very drunk Linda Craft, for example. Who knows? She was certainly enjoying the drinks to get her through her son's birthday party, for sure.
Yeah, it definitely was. I went down to the store actually during the week this week just to check it out and make sure. And yes, they are totally playing up to the type of stuff we would normally give away in our goodie bags for our pub quiz. There's some Crimson Cat pint glasses. There's a hit flask on there. There's shot glasses. There's wine glasses on there. You know, loads of stuff drink related. So pretty much aimed directly at us. Maybe they were listening.
Maybe, just maybe.
Let's get into the episode itself, guys. Ready to go, guys?
Yeah.
This episode was directed once again by Sergio Mimica-Gezzan, who directed episode 3, and written by John Logan for this episode. John, do you want to tell us what they gave us with the big summary for this episode?
Sure. Detective Tiago Vega scours Sister Molly's beach house for clues, leading to some disquieting revelations. Meanwhile, Councilwoman Beck proposes an alternate route for the Arroyo Seco motorway, infuriating her rival councilman Townsend and leading him back to his unchecked appetites. Meanwhile, Peter Craft invites Elsa and her pseudo-son Frank to a party at his home, inflaming the suspicions of his wife Linda and disquieting even further her son Tom. Detective Lewis Michner asks the gangster Benny Berman to help battle the growing Nazi menace in LA. Meanwhile, after Josefina Vega has a harrowing encounter with Officer Reilly, Mateo seeks retribution with his new Pachuco friends as Josefina pursues spiritual enlightenment with Sister Molly.
Here's an episode 4 of this show, where so much is ramping up, so much is going on, that I don't know whether we're going to get it all covered in our podcast, guys.
No, it was definitely, they're starting to throw everything bar the kitchen sink in here. But we'll wait and see. We'll do our best to cover it all.
Absolutely. John, do you want to take us off with your big moment for the episode?
I will, yes. It is the unholy trinity.
bad Batman, bad Superman, and bad Wonder Woman.
No, not in this case. Or should I say the unholy spirits of Josefina, Officer Reilly, and Mateo. Yes, this is something that is just massive. It's really huge for this episode because it's been building for so long. We've had the repulsion of Officer Reilly, really just the inherent bias, and racism that he has. He really is someone that doesn't sort of fit comfortably as you watch. Oh, yeah. And then you have Josefina, who has been relatively quiet. She's there in very much almost as a back character so far with the Vega brothers, and of course with the strength and presence of her mum, Maria. And Mateo is someone who has been building this. He is like a pressure cooker ready to explode. And it really comes to a head here, and leads to just so many disturbing situations, and a bloody, visceral murder here, which is, it just really comes to a great climax, I think, in this episode. We have Reilly continuing his persecution of the Mexicans, and this really comes to a head as he puts Mateo and Josefina into his crosshairs. And not only is he sort of violent towards Mateo, but then, pulls that, I suppose in some ways it is a little bit of a trope, but that, I'm going to search for a concealed weapon, on Josefina, but effectively here sexually harasses her, and violates her, whilst her brother is watching on. And in turn, this feeling of helplessness then from Mateo really just sinks further, and he effectively does boil over at the Vega family dinner, whether both him and Josefina were getting groceries to bring back, and unknown to both Maria, Tiago, and Raul, they don't know any of this. Josefina is, you will keep this quiet. So it's not only that Mateo wants to explode in terms of his frustration and this pent up anger that has been building slowly, but so too he's forced back into himself because of how Josefina wants to handle this in a very different way. And
such a tough scene to watch.
It really is.
Reilly is just abhorrent, and already has been in the show. If you didn't know he's one of the villains of the show, they certainly underline it in this episode. They really give him everything that you could possibly hate about a person is right there on screen, from that opening scene where he's beating up a possible suspect. In the murder, remember, this is what he's saying he's beating up this kid for. That's one of the kids from the Crimson Cat that he arrested last week. This isn't someone that could be any way involved in, or has any particular reason to be involved in the murders that they're supposed to be investigating. Much like, what was it? It's probably about 30 or 40 other Chicanos who are all in the two jail cells on either side. But Reilly's taking out his racist frustration on this kid at the beginning of the episode, and then he's using his privilege and using his abilities that he has as a police officer to abuse this young girl, Josefina. You know?
Absolutely.
I'm wondering, is the reason why he goes as far as he goes with her, is it because he does recognize Mateo? When he talks to me, he looks in his face and then says, "Oh, I do know you. You're not as powerful as you were when you were around your Pacheco friends." And I wonder whether that's why he goes so far. Would he have gone that far if it wasn't for Mateo's connection to the Pachecos, or was he intending to do that the minute he got out of the car?
I think it does, because we later find out that he abuses women, gives them drugs, and uses them as sex slaves, to a degree, prostitutes. And
just quickly, Chris, as well, I think on the flip side of it, would he have done that if he had known that was Tiago's sister? That's the other interesting thing here, because he doesn't seem to know that Mateo is his brother.
That's true.
So it's an interesting situation that Reilly finds himself in. Obviously, we'll come to the actual situation he finds himself in a moment, but if it hadn't gone that way, would we have Tiago beating him to death as opposed to Tiago's younger brother?
Yeah, so this is one thing I want to get off my chest now, which is the actual assault scene. We've all agreed that it was really difficult to watch.
Oh, yeah.
I've seen loads of scenes of assault on film before. I don't know why this was harder to watch than most of the others.
Yeah.
Like, this is just sticking in my brain, and I don't know whether it's the abuse because it's a policeman or the underage, or I don't know what element or the way it was acted. I definitely, part of it is the way it was acted. Like, just a single tear running down Josefina's face and Mateo kind of screaming.
And I think the two kids are so innocent, you know, Mateo and Josefina are seen as being very, very young kids, you know, especially Josefina. They're talking about their future. He's saying to her, you know, when you become a famous actress, I'll be your bodyguard, you know, when you break away from all of the horror that we have to live in this horrible area of LA, these small houses, and you make your big name. And it's just before effectively her spirit is kind of crushed by having Reilly do what he does. And it's so well played. She does a great job because you almost feel that there's a kind of a timidity to her in the scenes beforehand, but the strength that comes out of her afterwards when she's telling Mateo that he can't tell anybody else about it, she suddenly feels like a really strong older person because she's gone through this experience. And it is because her innocence has been taken away. You can see it. The actress in the role just does such a great job of getting across the horrible, painful nature of what's happening in the scene, I think. And I think you're right, Chris. It's one of those things you do see assault, sadly, in films used a lot. They're sadly something that is put on screen a lot, but this is an adult show and they're not shying away from the impact it's actually having on the character. And I think it's done really well. I would totally echo your sentiments, Chris, that it's something that is very much more affecting than I've seen in other things.
It was affecting. I think that, you know, it is down to the whole interaction. The brother seeing his sister being, manhandled and abused in that way. You know, Johnathan Nieves does a really great performance, as well as Jessica Garza. And I think as well, you know, at the heart of it, Rod McLachlan, who plays Officer Reilly, he has played this police officer in a way that, you know, I would say there is no one with any sympathy for this character. The obnoxiousness of it, the pervasive sense of entitlement and arrogance and persecution that he brings to the character. And then where he's kind of met his match, like with Rico in the hospital, I think he's played that really well. I mean, it just the tap on the rear end as he walks away. So he's not done anything wrong, but it's just cementing absolutely everything about what he's just done wrong to Josefina. And so, the whole three actors here were just amazing to bring across just how unnerving and sort of just awful that whole situation was.
Quick aside to this, Rod McLachlan, apparently when he was on set of The Crimson Cat with all the, you know, the dancers and stuff, where he had that scene when he came in and was saying loads of racist terms, apparently in between every take he was apologizing to all the actors around, going, look, I'm really sorry, it's in the script, I have to say this, and I'm going to say it like I mean it, but I don't mean it. I genuinely would never say words like this in real life. And he was very apologetic. Apparently he's a very nice, friendly person, and saying this kind of stuff and doing these kind of scenes is really tough for him. So I just thought it was quite interesting. I saw that from one of the actors last week.
Yeah. And I think the other thing you mentioned about how Josefina comes across as really grown up, and you think about how she deals with it in comparison to how Mateo has dealt with his own frustrations or, how he has felt. And it all really comes out on display at then the Vega family dinner, where really it does absolutely kick off. And Josefina actually gets ignored by her mum in the moment because of the huge argument that's just spilled out with Mateo. But she is trying to resolve exactly what's happened immediately by telling her mom, and then that's not worked, and she goes off to the Joyful Voices ministry. Yeah. So, it's an interesting difference in how they're dealing with their own frustrations as to this persecution that they both find themselves in. Mm-hmm. Whereas Mateo, this performance here is a force, an absolute force of acting, I think, by Johnathan Nieves, both in terms of his words of saying, you are also fucking weak. I'm tired of being weak, and for the first time I feel strong. He dismisses his mum because she's just a cleaner. He dismisses Tiago because he kisses ass. Mm-hmm. And it's all down to the Pachuco symbol that is spotted by Maria, and of course it all just boils over and explodes. But in this moment you get the sense that what with everything that's just happened to Josefina there with Reilly, and then effectively, because he can't say anything, and because of the situation at the family dinner, this is where he becomes radicalized effectively and is helped along by Rico of the Pachucos. That she knows what vein to tap to get him going, because this is his expression, and it is in such contrast to Josefina's expression of how she's going to deal with it.
Yeah.
What is the Pachuco symbol? That's the one I was like, is it the cross, or is it?
Yeah, it's the cross with the 4 dots within, around the center cross point.
Right, okay.
Yeah. Just between the thumb and the finger there, in that kind of notch.
And you can see it. It's something that's gone really throughout history with these types of groups, these types of effectively kind of gangs that have happened, that have been created. You see the reaction from Tiago when he sees his younger brother going, "You'll be killed if you're seen with that mark on your skin." There are cops in this city that will see that mark and will take it that you are instantly against them, and they will take you out just because of the mark. He's worried, he's scared, and he's also angry that his kid brother would go out and do this. We probably know it from things like, skinheads back in the 80s. If you were walking around with a shaved head, that was an instant threat to the police. They would arrest you almost instantly for having this symbol that you're part of this gang kind of thing, So I thought that was an interesting moment between the two of them. And obviously Maria Vega is telling her son that she's massively disappointed instantly. She doesn't want an explanation. She's effectively going, you've completely disappointed me. And that's where their fight comes from. But it's a really good scene between all of them, Interestingly, because we haven't really seen much of the reaction of Zombie Vega at this point.
I'm sorry. I'm so happy that it's staying.
It's staying until something happens. But I did think it was interesting. He doesn't react much other than trying to calm the family down. In this part, he doesn't take sides with anybody in the room. Of course, Josefina has just gone through this horrible experience, doesn't also take sides. She's more freaked out that there's a fight going on when everything's going on in her mind. But Raul doesn't take a side between Tiago and Mateo and Maria. He kind of sits back and just says, "Everybody calm down," and that's it. So will we see more from Raul in the future? I hope we do.
But I think his personality has changed because in the very first episode, when we're introduced to him, he is, to be fair, one of the more hot-headed, antagonistic brothers. Mm-hmm. And now we see him joking about how his brother's going out with a gringa, as he calls her.
I have to say, his turn of phrase on the line about why it's much better to be with a Chicano woman rather than a gringa, I loved the idea where he goes, who you are with a Chicano woman, she makes you chase her until she catches you. I love that turn of phrase. It's just such an interesting little observation. It's still a funny conversation between two brothers as well. I just thought that was good. I'll make sure that I make a good speech at your wedding. When Tiago says, "I haven't even been on a date with this woman, just had one meeting with her," and he's like, "I'll make a good speech at your wedding."
Yeah, absolutely.
But Zombie Bro will come back.
Yeah, absolutely. I think Zombie Bro is probably still in recuperation here. But certainly someone who needs to maybe calm down, but unfortunately is not in that place. We get the death of Officer Reilly at the hands of Mateo. I found this really tough to watch. I watched it twice in terms of bringing my notes together, and each time I think just the visceral nature of how it was done just really struck me. And I think it's because, you know, a death where the person who is effectively being killed still struggles. Yeah. I find, and because it's not a single sort of wound, it's not like a gunshot to the head or stepping on a mine. This is something where even Mateo has to see it all the way through, hands-on, from the moment he puts the razor in the side of Riley's neck, all the way through to having a tussle with him, to sort of just continually slicing his neck. And it was bloody. And there is a fantastic, I think the shot is fantastic, of Mateo looking down at Riley there, blood-stained, with his razor, and the look in his eyes is devilish. It looks like he's been taken on by a demon. It felt to me like the moments in Penny Dreadful, the original 3 series, where Malcolm Murray was possessed by demons, where you really get the dark, fully black eyes. Right. It felt that sort of devilish. And I think, you know, here what we're seeing is absolutely a change in Mateo. And we have, I think, what's been born here is this split with his brothers. This is, you know, the war of brothers. It started at the dinner table, but it's been building, and Rio has pushed the button on this war of brothers. And to top it off, Riley is tossed in front of the police station, bloody, naked, and very, very much dead. So there is this message sent to the LAPD, which is going to ignite things even further. Absolutely. I mean, you know, from the start of this episode, seeing Riley doing what he was doing in the police station, and now you have Riley effectively going to be the trigger for the LAPD to be even less accommodating and tolerant of Mexicans, is going to be interesting.
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah. They keep using the S word, and it keeps getting harder to listen to.
I know.
And I was just like, and I know why they're using it from a historical perspective. It would have been used. And it's just, when you see Tiago even talking to the captain, and it's just basically make this stop, solve the case, and we'll stop, we'll look at, otherwise the interrogations will continue. The dead body of a police officer, and when you already have the councilman basically showing off the bloody shirt of a previous lawman who had died in the original first episode. This is literally, this isn't the straw that breaks the camel's back. This is the 2-ton sledgehammer that smashes the camel's back.
Absolutely.
And that really kind of kicks off. And I know we last episode discussed the Pachuco War, the Zutu riots that happened later on in like another 4 or 5 years. I think they might move things slightly forward just for artistic license.
I'm even wondering whether we would get there at all. I'm wondering whether the LAPD are just going to come all guns blazing after this. Whether there's going to be any war at all, I don't know. Because the interesting thing about the push from Rio to go and take revenge on Riley is that what Rio says is that she wants to make his face look just like he left one of their brothers, the kid who was beaten at the start, who has a few bruises, a black eye. You know, he looks like he's definitely been roughed up. But she certainly didn't indicate to anybody that she wanted them to go out there and murder a police officer and drop his dead naked body in front of the police station. You know, this escalated as it went on, and they've fallen into a plan, you know. Also, one thing to say, definitely, this episode shows you Penny Dreadful isn't just your standard, good guy versus bad guy thing where, you know, the bad guy, Riley, finally gets his comeuppance and they shoot him and kill him and then they leave him. You know, that there's much more difficult things in this show. You know, you wanted to see Riley get his comeuppance. okay, he gets killed, but you've got to sit there and watch him get his throat sliced open and him bleeding to death on the floor. You've got to sit there with the characters and see how brutally a murder is going to look on screen. You know, they really will show you that stuff.
Yeah. Just on that, in so many other shows, they would have showed Mateo stand behind Riley, slice his throat, as blood pours out.
Yeah.
And
I didn't mean to laugh there. It was just your impersonation of someone losing all their blood from the neck.
Yes. As my hands flail. No, but in this they were like, oh, no. When you slice someone with a barbershop knife in like across the neck, it doesn't just kind of go through all one way in straight away. No, you've got to saw for a bit.
Yeah.
And you see Mateo saw the carotid artery to get down there, and it's just like spraying up, and I was like, oh, okay. But I will take, very quickly, I will take umbrage or challenge with Rio just saying that we'll leave him. I think this is Rio. This is Rio. Like, there's a line or well-known line. It's like, I'll be the spark. Basically, she is the spark to this powder keg.
Absolutely.
And I'm still trying to figure out what the other sparks are going to explode. But very much, we now know what the Rio spark is.
Yeah.
It's that she's igniting the race riot part. Yeah. Of, again, nation versus nation, brother versus brother, race versus race, back to the prophecy. The Rio is igniting the race.
Yeah, well, she's igniting both. She's igniting race and brothers because she has given Mateo the place to vent his frustration. And he's done that. And even before this, with the first meeting, you know, he got the tattoo. Yep. He felt belonged. It's hence what he says to his own family. He sees them now as being weak, that they're somehow hiding. It's probably why he doesn't say anything, but he probably disapproves of Josefina, in a sense, keeping it to herself in that moment, and that he can't say anything. Yes, he respects it in that moment, but he's seeing all his family as being weak, and that's coming from how he has been given his confidence and his strength through the Pachucos, but through Rio. And then, as you say, there is the tinderbox, which has just been happened with Riley being dumped in front of the police station. I think it is absolutely Rio's way of doing this, because you saw Rico. Yes, he's gone along with it, but he has been more held back. Yeah. In that, at the Crimson Cat, where they're discussing about targeting Riley, it is because Mateo stands up, and the guy who's being beaten up in the police station at the start of the episode, where he says, "I'm with you," and in a sense, Rio is forcing Rico's hand to move in this way. Oh, so that is really interesting. And as you say, Chris, I think what this death shows is the struggle of killing. In that, not only it's not clean with a barber's razor, but when your opponent is a large police officer who's struggling and grasping at life, it's even harder. It's dirty, it's hands-on, it's unpleasant, it's brutal, it's all of that. And yeah, you all wanted Riley to have his comeuppance. And for me, it probably doesn't make great sort of TV, but it would be that he gets justice served to him. Yeah. But of course, this is violent justice. This is a vengeance. This is revenge by Mateo and the other guy as well, who I think has knuckle dusted him beforehand. So you see him with a knuckle duster. So Riley certainly has been the message to the LAPD. For sure.
Yeah. You have a little bit more about the actual point, though, as well. I know you want to talk a little bit about Josefina meeting Sister Molly as well in the episode, John.
Yeah, I think for me, again, I discussed this, that she's gone to the Joyful Voices ministry and she connects with that sermon, that preaching from Molly. She hasn't been listened to by her mum in that moment. That's not to say that Maria Vega wouldn't, listen to her daughter at that moment. But in this moment, she has sought solace and a way of trying to deal with it by going to the ministry, the Joyful Voices ministry. And here she connects with Molly. And I suppose just because of the title of the episode, which is Josefina and the Holy Spirit, that is Molly here in the form of the Holy Spirit. There is that moment where she is looking up at the ceiling of the auditorium and she's murmuring something. It's like this idea that she becomes possessed in a way, and the change in behavior is noticed by Mrs. Adelaide, her mother, and kind of takes her back. You see her mum kind of almost hugging herself, that moment just to kind of steady herself. And I know you've mentioned it as well previously, Derek, that is she trying to call on some kind of spirit or whatever? Yeah. So I'm just wondering, is Molly here effectively the Apostolic Catholic evangelical version of Santa Muerte, or she's calling upon the Holy Spirit or the Virgin Mary? And it's also just because her and Tiago are connecting as well.
Yeah.
Because he's been touched by Santa Muerte, that he somehow has some root to her, and maybe Molly does as well, but not to Santa Muerte, to the Holy Spirit, the Virgin Mary, whoever it may be.
Yeah. It's very hard to tell with this show, isn't it? Because these are the exact same tactics that an evangelical minister uses to try and get people to donate to their ministry. This is a ministry that makes a lot of money. These are the exact things that they do. They jump around the stage. They take away people's pain. They cure people of illnesses they couldn't possibly be cured from in any other way. So therefore they must have an actual direct connection to some form of higher power kind of thing. She doesn't actually say it. She says the devil is in the room. She says God is around us. She says, I need to protect you. And then she does this moment where she looks up in the sky, and it seems to take Mrs. Adelaide by surprise that she's going this far with it, but it could all be part of the act, of course.
It could as well.
But absolutely. This is Penny Dreadful, so you have to ask, is there going to be a moment where we find out that when she was a young girl, she was possessed by what she is explaining is a Holy Spirit? Maybe it's not. Maybe it's another demon. This could be something that is coming out over the next few episodes. And I'm really intrigued just by this moment, whether it will just be, this is the play that she puts on for everybody to get money for her mother and the organization, or she's actually being possessed by a demon and translating it as the Holy Spirit.
So we are reintroduced again to Santa Muerte, at the beginning of this episode, who she does not interact. She does not involve herself directly. And that's what she said before. I don't do it directly. My job is this one thing.
Yeah. She doesn't care for the living. She cares for the souls of the dead. Yeah.
Molly is talking about souls. Molly is talking about everything. So I am wondering, could it be Santa Muerte doing this this possession?
Yeah.
Or does she talk to Molly? Mm-hmm. So, that's why Molly and Tiago potentially are linked or find each other and kind of are drawn to each other, is because they're both touched by Santa Muerte.
Perhaps, yeah.
Yeah.
Because some would see Santa Muerte as the Holy Spirit, or like the person that brings the souls with them to heaven, wherever. Could that just be Santa Muerte is the Holy Spirit just in a different form? Blah blah blah.
I don't know. I don't know whether we have an equivalent in the Christian religion. I know we have death in some religions. That is the thing that transports the souls to the beyond, effectively, and the ferryman. Exactly. And both of us saying it exactly the same time. Like there are, in Norse religions and in Greek religions, there are different versions of this character. Santa Muerte is the angel of death, is another description for her as well. So I don't know whether it's a direct connection to what we would think of as the Holy Spirit, but I can certainly get if she is channeling some form of angel or some form of demon, that in her own Christian mind, she may be thinking I'm definitely got a connection to the Holy Spirit.
Absolutely. You know? I think, we've seen with Maria, she has had to incant to Santa Muerte to bring her, to talk with her and so on. So it's either that Molly knows about Santa Muerte through an experience, because we do see at the start that, again, the child who was gunned down at Ensenada in Mexico seems to notice her. So maybe at some point she noticed Santa Muerte. The reason why I was thinking, because of the Holy Spirit, that, not that it necessarily has to be exactly like Santa Muerte in terms of someone ferrying souls that have died, but just the spiritual nature of it, that there is this conduit that she has got. And it may be Santa Muerte, it may be the Holy Spirit. In the same way that Tiago, that connection, he has this touch of her, and so maybe has this conduit which his mom has been talking about. That's why I was bringing that up, because it seems here that there is more to Molly and her connection to Tiago, but also potentially to Josefina now as well. And maybe that's another thing that we will have built on. Absolutely. As I said at the beginning of the episode, we could talk about each of these points for an hour each. We're not going to talk about them for that long. Chris, do you want to take us on to the next big point from the episode? Yes. So very quickly, mine is very much related to this, which is Tiago and Molly. Okay. So that is that kind of the other trifecta, which is Tiago, the death, and Molly. Mm-hmm. So in the last episode, we speculated, was Molly with Hazlitt? Was she having an affair? Mm-hmm. Is that real? Was that just Michner kind of believing it to be true? Was Hazlitt trying to help Molly? No, they flat out prove it in this episode. She is a woman. She has needs. She was with Hazlitt, as she says, and she has been with other men too. Mm-hmm. She just wanted an escape. She wants to be normal. That's what that house was. So we get Tiago, to be fair, doing his rifling around. We see the lubricated Trojans while Tiago was doing the rummaging of the house, the investigation of the house. I was like, oh, this is just the Hazlitt's house. Basically, it's a wife. Oh, right. No. And I was like going, oh, this is nice. And like, is it Hazlitt and his wife? Like, it's their summer home. He was embezzling the money and etc. Then the Trojans were there and I was like, no. And then all of a sudden Molly's there, and she just admits, it's like, no, I'm sleeping with men. I've had men before you and everything. And to be fair, straight away, I'm like, go girl. Yeah. Mm-hmm. You don't have a relationship with Tiago aside from your beautiful moment, down on the piers. Mm-hmm. And I'm like, yeah, no, like, put him in his place. He doesn't own you. Like, stand up. I have to say, there is a moment with Tiago when he finds those Trojans in the drawer. You can see his face drop, going, "Oh, damn it!" It's like she's not the woman I thought she was. She's not the one that she sold. And I love that it's addressed in the conversation with Molly, where she says, "We were both different people yesterday. We were both pretending to be other people. You told me that I could." That's what he says to her at the bus stop. He says, "Why don't we try and be different people for one day?" And they were, and they fell. He thinks they fell in love in that day, It does play out much nicer towards the end of the episode, of course, but she's having that moment where, she's saying to him, you gave me the opportunity. I was a different person. I didn't tell you every single secret I have in my life. And is it shocking to find that I have got a life outside of that moment that we spent together yesterday, Well, that's true. You say that it plays out better. I must say, to use the words of her Goss, I love what it does to us. Given that he is connecting over dirty dishes, he must really love her to do the washing up, as a date. Can you imagine? I did think that was sweet. Yeah. I literally was not I was expecting him to burn the bridge down, and we would come back to the Sister Molly from a Tiago storyline perspective towards the end. Okay. And it's like, no, they showed
Now, they haven't shown this conversation, but I think there's a level of acceptance here where we're going to see more of Molly.
Yeah.
So, and not just from the Josefina potentially possessed route.
Yeah.
Like, this is that, no, look, she's a woman with womanly needs. She's human. She is just basically wants relationships. She wants a partner. She wants just normal life, not just being Sister Molly. They're going to say, actually, my real name's not even Molly. It's Kate or something weird like that.
I must say, I thought she did that really well. That was just fantastic. You really felt, as you say, Chris, you really felt her despair at having to put on the act to the parishioners, in a sense, or for her mum, even whatever it may be. Yeah. That sense from her portrayal, though, was really, really good.
It makes sense when we were first introduced to her, and she's sitting behind the curtain, and we were like, "Is she in a trance? Is she?" No, she's just like an actor preparing to go on stage. She's putting on the persona of Sister Molly. She's becoming Sister Molly, where she's like, all right, build yourself, psych yourself up for the big presentation.
I still think that could have been an indication she was being possessed at that time as well.
No. Sorry, I'm not saying she's not. Yeah. And I think there's definitely a massive question mark on the whole supernatural / Sister Molly angle. And I think they'll dive into it soon enough.
We're going to get to the end of the season and there's going to be no supernatural element with her at all. But it's penny dreadful. You're led to believe that. But skipping to the end, I enjoyed this reconciliation where there's no words. Yeah. It was just like, can I come in and help? Yeah. And she hands him the dirty dish and they go back because it's only that we know that this is her safe space. That she calls that out in the very first episode. This is where I come to be alone, to think, blah, blah, blah. Yeah. And that he's inviting her back in. So I'm like, okay, we're in a good spot.
Yeah. Because I did think that it was kind of early doors for the two of them, because she says, I don't want to ever see you again. But yeah, I mean, you're right, it was lovely and sweet. It's just, I suppose, if you asked to meet over some dirty dishes, but you're right, that's her safe spot.
Yeah. It's her safe spot.
Yeah. So
meet me by the dirty dishes.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, you'd probably get a slap these days, or meet me by the dishwasher as we load it.
Oh, to have it.
Although I'm with Molly on this. Welcome to Inside Baseball for TV podcast industries on Chris. I enjoy doing the dishes because I'm exactly like Sister Molly. My brain turns off. I go into automatic mode. It's just wax on, wax off, clean, put away.
Don't put wax in your dishes.
Anyway, back to
don't wax on, wax off, unless you've got a karate bout to win.
I always have a karate bout to win in my mind. So moving on from one cop to the other, because I think we kind of covered Tiago and Molly. The biggest part for me, and we discussed it, and you actually brought it up very quickly at the beginning of this episode, Derek, was Michner and the Jews and the Nazi plot. So for me, I know I said I wanted more last episode in terms of the Werner von Braun, and I admitted to that, and I'm actually sticking to that. I think I could have done with more then, but you're right. They did it for a reason, and I hate saying that you're right, but you were right. They did it. They held back for a reason on explaining Werner von Braun because we have to get introduced to the Jewish gang, the underground, the Jewish mafia.
The Jewish mafia, probably, yeah. It
sounds like a joke. It's just like the gay mafia, the Jewish mafia. Oh, right. It's all big agenda. Well, no, there was actually apparently a Jewish mafia back then.
Oh, it's big. It's massively well known as well. I think I've mentioned before that I used to read a lot of crime books, of true crime books, about gangsters when I was younger. The Jewish gangsters.
Well, that explains everything.
Yeah, it certainly does. The Jewish gangsters, there was a massive cohort of them, very well known. One of the people that's mentioned mentioned by Michner in the conversation between himself and Benny Berman, the connection, I suppose. He mentions his boss, Mayor Lansky. Mayor Lansky was known as the mob's accountant. He was a real figure during the early days, and probably instrumental in the setting up of organized crime across America. He was the one that dealt with cleaning the money and dealt with the books for the mafia, for gangsters and the mob all across America. So yeah, very well known figure, and in crime scenes.
See, I found it funny. Funny, not funny, funny, interesting. In that you think of the mob, you think of the Italians, you think of Al Capone and hey, Mamma Mia, and that stereotype. But we get introduced to one of my favorite actors, Brad Garrett. Right. He's currently on Single Parents season 2, where he plays a plastic surgeon, and it's just funny. Mm-hmm. He has his comedic chops there, but you see it here, and he plays the towering mobster. Cause he's what, like 6 something?
He's 6'3" or 6'4", yeah, at least.
Yeah, he's huge. Yeah. Put him beside Nathan Lane, and the difference is huge.
Nathan Lane looks like a doll. He looks tiny in comparison to him. Yeah.
And then you put the two of them on seats at the funeral, or at the end of the funeral, and you start to see where Michner, as a character, not just as a cop, not as a detective, you see him as a force where he's going toe to toe with the mob, but going, I'm not coming to you as a detective. Like, I need to speak to Mayor Lansky. And we get, no, you do not talk about that. And then he goes, no, this is about Judea. They are gonna burn us down. And you get Benny pushing back, going, no, like, we're mobs. Like, we don't care. Like, this is not about us. And it's then explain just beautifully woven later on. Yeah,
absolutely. Explain to me why this should matter to me, that the Nazis are coming, kind of thing. We're in LA. We're so far away from Germany, you know, this idea that they're on the other side of the world from Germany. Why does it matter? There's no way the Nazis could be there. And I love the explanation that Michner gives to him. Well, you guys got here because it's a really easy city to control. You think the Nazis didn't think like that? You think the Nazis who were looking for a foothold in America didn't think, well, maybe we should go for LA where everything's easy, everything's a pushover, we can pay off the right people and we can get people in the right positions and take over the city, you know? Of course they did.
And he tries to talk about, say, the rockets. So this is where we have Werner von Braun. He goes, the kids in Caltech. And he goes, they'll steal this technology from the kids in Caltech and they'll be able to put a rocket in London, in Paris, in New York.
In Jerusalem, which is even more important to him.
And then he goes, in Jerusalem. And that's where you go, this is where the points are coming across. And then very quickly, we're reintroduced to Benny via a beautiful mob-style kidnapping. It's like, you get the very classic hood. It's like, hey, grab him, and they bring him off. And we're reintroduced to Benny in the fish market. And I was like, oh, like, at least it wasn't a butcher shop or something.
Pretty close.
Exactly. Just massive fish hanging. But I liked how this was tied back to the very beginning, back to Mexico, because my assumption on this was it was the Nazis stealing this, because that's you're assuming now that the bad guys are the Nazis in this. So anyone kind of going against anyone is the bad guys. It's the Nazis. And we get to see the background of how this is now affecting the mob, in that their shipments are being stolen and being sold to the Nazis by another Jew. And you're like, oh, this is where it starts to get interesting. But to be fair, Benny says shoot him. Michner says he tells him where to put it. He stands up what he believes in, quote unquote.
Absolutely. He's looking for help. He's not looking to sell his soul to the devil, basically, you know, and that's why he would refuse it. But Mr. Schiff did not last very long there at all, even though Michner refuses. And I have to say, the shot as they walk out of the room, effectively saying, you know, we will be on your side but there will be blood and death. As Judea rises again, kind of thing, as they all walk out of the room, and the shot of Michner standing there as the body spins around almost to look towards him after he's been shot. It's such
that was really good.
timed.
Yeah, that was perfect timing. I liked how the scene was slightly cut with Riley's ordeal as well, because ultimately Michner retains his integrity as a cop, just because, I mean, it is cops and criminals working together here. He's doing it for the whole Zionist cause, the protection of Jewish people, but it's still a cop working with the mafia. It's one of those great things where Penny Dreadful has these layers of grey. So I still don't think of Michner as being a bent or corrupt cop. And I think him refusing to shoot Schiff is really important in that, even though they are about to go and do business together with them. So he keeps his, he does keep his integrity here. And I again, this ordeal of Michner with Benny Berman is intercut with Riley a little. Now it's a different type of ordeal, certainly, well, except for Mr. Schiff, who does get his brains blown out. But yeah, for sure, I think this is really nice. And it was kind of a nice little potted history of, I suppose, a free Judea or Israeli state as well. I like that. I like the fact that New York is closed to the Nazis because of LaGuardia, aka LaGuardia Airport, because he's half Jewish.
Mayor.
Yeah,
yes,
Mayor LaGuardia.
Yeah, just in case, because I couldn't remember that he was named after the mayor of New York at the time. Yeah.
I didn't know LaGuardia was the mayor. I knew it was obviously a person, so yeah.
I didn't even know that.
There you go.
Yeah, I actually thought they meant the airport because they couldn't get a hold of it. Makes more sense.
Yes, the airport is not half Jewish, Chris. It's almost impossible. I think it is impossible.
I'm anything. I'm equal opportunity when it comes to religious buildings.
It's Penny Dreadful. It could be possessed.
Exactly.
Oh, no.
It's like Hell House, but Hell Airport, which is probably every airport at the moment.
Yeah, it's true. Have you been to LAX then? That's definitely part of hell. But anyway, that's kind of enough of my points. I think there is one final point that we need to talk about very badly. Derek, do you want to give us your point for this episode?
Yep, I'm going to wrap everything up in 1 point from me, because
a big bow, bow.
It's a big bow. Really, it's Magda taking her revenge on everyone through all of her personas. It kind of ties into every single storyline and gives us the ability to talk about the 2 major storylines we haven't talked about in the episode as well. So we've already talked about Rio's kind of connection and the revenge that she's taken by using Mateo effectively to kind of kick off that war with the police. I think we talked in last week's episode about that moment with Alex where she lost control, really, of Councilman Townsend, and he was walking away from her, and she turned back into Magda, and we wondered what Magda was going to do. Would we see Magda personified again doing some kind of attack, some kind of killing of people around her? And I think, if I understand what's happening in this episode, actually we see Magda using all of her personas to take revenge on everybody around her. We see Rio using the people that are around her, the Pachucos, to take revenge on the police for their attack on the club, effectively. We see Alex definitely taking revenge on Councilman Townsend for disobeying her. She's now in proper league with Goss and with Kurt. She's using Kurt to abduct Councilman Townsend and effectively make a videotape of him that she can blackmail him into doing whatever she needs him to do. You know, I love the kind of conversation between the two of them, between Alex and Goss, where they're saying, you know, well, at least he's going to be with one of ours. He's not going to have to go out and pay for it anymore. At least we have someone that will take care of him, of all his needs. And Goss going, well, Kurt will definitely do that for him. Kurt knows exactly what this all entails, you know? Yeah.
I must say, I did think her Goss was priceless saying that line. Just the intonation of like our love, what it does to us, just with the projector flickering between him and Alex, having just seen the image of what's being projected there, and he is calmly sort of smoking his cigarillo with a glass of his favorite tipple. I just thought his composure with being very matter of fact with what was going on the screen was just really good. And let's just say there'll be none of that for the dreadful pub quiz whilst we enjoy our favourite tipple. We'll have no raunchy blue visuals going on there, but I just like their conversation between him and Alex and that last moment, because her Goss is really quite sophisticated in a sense, and I like, he won't just kill Councilwoman Beck, and in the same way, well, we'll just hold this, in case we need it, along with Alex. I thought it was just nicely played by her Goss.
Absolutely, and I have to say, the scene itself, as Kurt is abducting Councilman Townsend, did anybody else think this is how it was going to play out? I definitely thought Townsend was going to end off at the bottom of a ditch.
As soon as they moved...
Well, he ended up on the bottom.
Yeah, exactly. As soon as they went into the motel, I thought drove in, I thought, okay, but absolutely up till that point, I thought like it was played really, really nicely by Michael Gladys, the panic, as he's, going even further into the remote hills around LA, that he's basically going to get a bullet, because let's face it, his hustler, that was pretty brutal. Like, he opens to leave and it's dum dum, it's like the silence of thud of a gun, which is really kind of slightly disturbing anyway. But that hustler, in his prime, looking fairly magnificent, and gone. Snuffed out.
Yeah, but they did ensure that you got a line from him that he was about to rip off the councilman again. He was saying to him, I know we agreed on 500,
Yeah.
So you do know that this kid is not the nicest of people either. So just before he gets shot in the head. But the whole scene is played so well with Dominic Sherwood, who plays the character of Kurt, where you have Councilman in the back trying to open the doors as the car slows down and Kurt go into him, you can't get out. It's control from up here. And it doesn't say anything more to him. Even when questioned about whether he's American or not, you hear the accent from him, and Councilman's going, hang on a second, you're American, you're supposed to be part of the Gestapo, and he goes, no, I'm many things. These really short answers, not to assuage any fears, not to calm him down at all, before they get into the hotel. It just felt like a real out of nowhere surprise that this was happening between the two of them. There was definitely a bit of silence when I was live tweeting this moment. There's a lot of fans of Dominic Sherwood. I keep forgetting whether I've mentioned this in the show. Dominic Sherwood is an actor who is very big in a very popular television show with a certain demographic of people who are all massive fans of Dominic Sherwood. And I think they went quite silent when they were live tweeting along, and this moment happened. It was completely unexpected for most people, I would say.
Their dreams crushed in a black and white image.
I don't know where they're crushed.
Or not. Exactly.
Or not,
exactly. I'd say a lot of people could have been very happy.
Depending on which preference, absolutely. But I like the idea that dreams were made and crushed in one swoop.
Much like what Magda does.
Exactly.
That's kind of Alex's revenge. We know now she's probably got Councilman Townsend back in her pocket for whatever else she needs him to do in future. And then the other kind of massive story from the episode really is Elsa going over to the party in Dr. Craft's house. So I think this revenge, which is effectively the sex scene that she has with Dr. Craft, I think this actually comes about because of the challenge from Dr. Craft's wife that we heard at the beginning of the show, the moment, because I don't think she was intending on having sex with him there. She did tell him last time that she wasn't going to have sex in the house of her fictional husband, as we know, that Dr. Craft doesn't know is fictional, but we know that she wasn't, I believe that she wasn't intending to go there to have sex with him, but when she got challenged, she was like, okay, this is the way I'm going to manipulate this man into leaving this wife who thinks she can still control him. And then finally, we also have the manipulation of the fifth persona of Magda, I suppose. If you count Magda, fifth persona is Frank, right? Because he was left there on his own at a sleepover with the rest of the kids. And not only does he tell the scary true story of Florence, the kid who unfortunately was murdered with arms taken off and eyes sewn open, he also enters the nightmares of Tom, the kid who kind of recognized who he was. He enters the nightmares as another character, another persona. He actually is Florence in his dreams. Like the idea that Magda is there as Frank and then is also cladding himself in the body of Florence and waking Tom up to show that he's there. You know, it's terrifying.
I don't know if that was in his mind.
Yeah.
I think because they can morph the body, I literally think Frank became...
Oh, yeah. That's what I said, yeah.
Oh, sorry, no, I thought you meant he entered the nightmare. No.
Yeah.
He literally, just met him, transformed, from evil Frank to evil Magda.
Absolutely.
Yeah. I thought when you said he was in his nightmares, it was almost like a Freddy Krueger thing, but that was... Yeah, it seemed to me like he was taking on poor Florence in all her forms in that sense.
Yeah, absolutely. No, I was. I mean, he's entering his nightmares because he's going to be having nightmares about that moment for the rest of his life and thinking it might have been a dream. It wasn't a dream. That was terrifying. The job they did on that version of Florence, the limbless version of her, when she's staring, screaming at him, was terrifying.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, yes, Magda's taking revenge, and I agree with you on this one. The challenge, I think, potentially, because you're correct, because she's then somewhat flirting with this other gentleman that we get introduced to, the other Nazi, who we see at the very first episode with Dr. Craft.
Ethan Peck plays the character, yeah. Herman Ackerman is the character. Yeah.
Yes, exactly. And I think then it is the challenge of Dr. Craft's wife, which you played in the intro. It really does seem to be that's potentially it. I just still don't know where this is going. This is the one that's not confusing me. This is the one that I'm like, okay, I don't know how this is going to bring about the prophesized end right now. This is the one I'm like, all the other ones I can kind of see. Right. This is the one where I'm like, yeah, she's just going to be the doctor's mistress.
Well, I would feel in the same way that Rio has effectively aided to the radicalization of Mateo.
Yeah.
I feel that Elsa is aiding to the radicalization of Dr. Craft. You know, we see this group of people feeling that they're not being listened to anymore. They have gone out to the parks. They've tried to share their word. And you hear Herman Ackerman saying, if we could just get on the radio, then everybody in the country could hear what we want to say. He's trying to pervert the nation with their thoughts in the same way that Sister Molly's doing with her evangelical Christian thoughts on the radio waves, you know? And you hear that the thing that's stopping them from some of the Nazis that are there, or some of the fascists that are there, they're saying the reason why they can't do that is because, well, the Jews own the radio waves and they won't let us on board. So there is that antagonism that's being built up, and she's stoking those fires. You know, we mentioned before, she's not the person that's saying this is the end game and you have to go there and you have to do this. She's whispering in their ear, giving them some guidance as the path that they are probably going to follow. And that end point they're going to get to is where she wants them to go without saying it directly.
Yeah. I was also, I think there is a melting pot element here to this whole storyline, in that maybe one of these story threads is a kickoff. It's that idea that the melting pot of all these different people and different cultures. So that you've got the Mexicans, the Jewish, you've got Germans there as well. You've got people who see themselves as American patriots in Townsend. This melting pot is leading to sort of this domino effect to a bigger thing. And I think there's an element of that to me, in that the melting pot here is causing the tensions. It's driving the tensions that spill downwards towards a family and upwards to effectively a world war.
Absolutely.
And I think there's an element of that. So for me, yeah, and I suppose more, it's only really this episode where he's mentioning about getting on the radio that maybe this is the connection in with, say, the Molly element to it. But otherwise, up till now, I've just really been thinking that Elsa, is trying to radicalize Dr. Craft, in the same way that Rio has radicalized Mateo, and Alex is effectively, in a different way, radicalizing Townsend to make radical decisions, I suppose, that he wouldn't normally have gone down. But yeah, I know what you mean, Chris. It's a toughie. It's like, even on this, I want to see more of Linda Craft now as well, because I loved her in this garden party. She does a superb resting bitch face, which I want to see more of. And that opening to the podcast, that little sort of, putting Elsa in her place, little does she know, I suppose, but it's just great. The henpeck is very nicely done by Linda Craft here. So good. Yeah, absolutely. And it does ask those questions that we have no idea about. It's questions that we're, again, probably going to find out as the series goes on. What did happen in Essen? What is about Dr. Craft's family? Like, does that mean he has another family, as in wife and kids? Or did he turn over his own family to the Nazis before leaving Essen? Is that something about his, his parents and his brothers and sisters, that kind of stuff, So it really intrigued to know why it is that she effectively hates Dr. Craft so much. Why is it that she doesn't like him? And why is it that she's saying she has stuck with him? There's some really intriguing stuff that I'm sure we're going to get out. Piper Perabo plays the character. She's a well-known actress. I can't imagine that she's only there for that. Wonderful though it is. I can't believe she's not there for just that one scene,
True, exactly. Though that was my thing, was like, what was Essen? Because I know there was some things around World War One and Essen, but I don't know how they would interact with this. But I also don't want to say anything just yet, just in case I'm right. But let's wait and see. Yes. But anyway, so wrapping it up, is there anything else you think around how Magda will kind of take her revenge over the coming episodes?
I think this is our first big moment where we're seeing all those little pieces that she has, her actually manipulating those pieces in the way, and her getting her little revenge on some of the people that may have not followed her guidance in the past, I suppose.
Yeah.
But also, we should mention it here as well, just Santa Muerte as well being the bookend to the episode in a way, opening the episode, being there at the deaths at the hands of Mr. Schiff, and then claiming her soul at the end of the episode as Mr. Schiff is killed for what he did to the innocents that were killed in that moment. Everything was found out, the plan was found out, and he was stopped. You wonder whether that's something that Santa Muerte did get involved in, to claim the soul of somebody that killed an innocent. Why would that scene be there at the beginning of the episode where she's there, where she's connecting with the innocent child? Why would it be there? And why would we have the comeuppance to Mr. Schiff at the end of the episode if it wasn't something connected to that overarching story of what is Santa Muerte willing to do to protect humans and to protect the living? Because there is that open question. She says she doesn't care. She says she's not supposed to. That's not her way. She's supposed to care for the souls. But, well, that's a question posed, right? She's definitely not going to stand out of it for the whole series, because then you wouldn't have an arc of her character. So could this be an indication that she is actually stepping in some senses, to protect some of the people that shouldn't be killed?
Yeah, I get the feeling that what we're going to see is Magda is a very much direct. She directly involves herself to prod the story where she wants to prod the human way she wants.
Just prod, a little whisper here and there.
Yeah. I think what we'll find is that Santa Muerte is potentially involved, though she just not direct. Like, it's like a softer touch, the touch of an angel just guiding, but the good whisper, if you will, the whisper on the wind. I'd be interested to see where it goes.
That's pretty much my point. Anything else that you guys had on Magda and the revenge that she's being taken?
It was more on Frank, I think, and his scary story. I think, for me, there were two elements that I really liked about this. One, that it kind of did throw me back to those scary stories as a kid, where someone would do a ghost story and then someone would do a real life story, which would freak you out even more. So that I thought was really good, and just the way Frank delivers it in this kind of creepy way. And certainly when he just shuts off the torch, right at the end of it.
Yeah.
I thought was really nicely, and how that developed with then further going after Tom through his morphing into Florence more. But it also felt like, was this Frank, aka Florence, aka Elsa, aka Magda, actually kind of delivering a warning? Because I love how he says how it happened in Pasadena, close to your house, Tom. And he really, is this a warning to the Crafts that, don't get in the way in a sense? Or are we going to see that Tom, Trevor, or Linda are going to be embroiled in something like this? That there will be a kidnapping for whatever reason. I don't know. It felt like it was a warning shot from Frank. And whether the kids in the room, Trevor and Tom, actually understood it as that, who knows? But it was just when he said, well, it happened in Pasadena, just a couple of blocks away from your house.
Yeah.
It's
looking
like
directly at Tom when he says that too.
Kind of making the point that scary stuff can happen here in Pasadena, and it will be real. I thought that was just really, really nicely done.
Yeah, excellent. Yeah, you're absolutely right. And you're also completely correct. That is absolutely how those stories go when you're a kid. You tell a scary story about a zombie or a mummy or a witch or something, and then suddenly somebody goes, oh, did you hear about what happened just down the street from your house, just down the road from your house? This murder happened or this thing happened. It's always something closer to home as well. So nice connection there as well. Any other notes about the episode? Nota de las Muertas, any notes of the dead?
No notes from me. Just want to reiterate how tough of a scene that was at the fence with Josefina, just to watch.
Yeah, definitely.
Just again.
Yeah, really, really tough. Really, really tough. One that I just want to mention, I know you mentioned the actor Brad Garrett, Chris, just in case anybody else didn't recognize him. He's probably best known from Everybody Loves Raymond, the sitcom. I'm using air quotes in that. That's not my type of sitcom.
I'm right there with you. I know he's in it. I just never watched Everybody Loves Raymond.
He's Raymond's brother, and he was in every episode of the show. So that went on for about 55 years, I think. If my recollection.
I think it's closer to 130. Okay. Or at least it feels that way.
Just really interesting, especially having him paired up with Nathan Lane, both known as comedic actors, and seeing them both in very serious roles in this episode. Even though we have a little bit of comedy between the two of them, there is a nice comedic moment between the two of them in this episode. But really interesting to see comedic actors being cast in these very serious roles in here. Mentioned about Mayor Lansky being the mob's accountant as well. But one thing just about the song that is sung at the German Bund, at Dr. Craft's house, that song is Ein Heller und ein Batzen, the penny and the dime. Interestingly, the penny for Penny Dreadful. It's a popular German folk song from the 1800s, a regular fixture of beer halls across Germany, but did become very well known as a marching song for German soldiers during World War II. So, so nice little bit of foreshadowing there that this group of the German Bund would choose this particular song led by Elsa, and that would eventually go on to become a marching song for German soldiers in World War II.
Oh my God. Do you imagine she's going to introduce later on Magda as Elsa will bring in, and this is my friend Adolf, and we find out that she's been whispering to Adolf?
Maybe.
Exactly.
I don't think
it'd be a nice little side, but probably not. John, any notes from your side?
Yeah, nothing from my side at all.
Okay. So, gentlemen, then, I believe it's time we'll wrap up this episode. So, because, John, he who speaks last speaks first, what did you think of this episode of Penny Dreadful, Season 1, Episode 4, City of Angels, Josefina and the Holy Spirit?
I thought this episode was really, really good. It had a massive feel of momentum. I think it was challenging across a whole range of things. And I loved how Magda was inserted in all of this, and how bad things were starting to come about. This revenge, as you were saying, Derek. And so for me, this is absolutely 4.5 yars out of 5. Indeed. And I think it was just really good. The interrelationships here are really some new ones are beginning to emerge, but I think in particular around Mateo, Josefina, and Officer Reilly for me. That I think it was amazing. Those interrelationships so challenging, really brutal, and what it kind of brings about in terms of what it kicks off is phenomenal. I think that was just done so well. I loved Linda Craft as well. At her party, Mother Bee walking around, and she will sting. My goodness, she will sting. And then with Benny Berman, what a great introduction to a character, and having Michner, he's desperate enough to need the mob as a detective. Yet, I think, he comes out of it with some of his integrity very much intact. And I think that's what I love about Penny Dreadful. I think things are written, they're not just bad or good. They are absolutely somewhere in between. And in fact, they can move all over the place over the course of a season. People can be bad, they can disappoint, they can be good, they can come back down to earth, and it's really nicely fluid, like I think real life is, and it's challenging in terms of what happens to Josefina from Reilly, but also Mateo doing his first kill, brutal, bloody, hands in, really what I love about Penny Dreadful, and it's really good seeing it on City of Angels. So yeah, 4.5 yards out of 5.
Excellent. Wunderbar.
Yeah, wunderbar.
Wunderbar. Derek, over to yourself. What did you think of this episode, Josefina and the Holy Spirit?
I really, really enjoyed this episode, apart from that moment where the German Bund were standing around that section together and talking back and forth, all American and English actors, and I knew the minute I saw Chris would be attempting his German accent all episode this week, and I couldn't stop. I was like, oh no, please don't. And then they had a sing song, and I was like, Chris is going to attempt that on the podcast as well. So you were on my mind when I was watching this episode, Chris.
Thank you. I should be always on your mind, especially when there is terrible accents.
You are.
When there's terrible accents at play, Chris is on.
We have been spared the singing. Let's be
Yes,
thankful.
Let's be honest.
But the good news is the acting, the writing in this episode, and the storyline really got me off that pretty quickly. I thought there was some of the best moments in this in the season so far in this episode. Everything from how scary the night tale was from Frank. If you were 8 or 9 years old and you heard that story, or 6 or 7 years old and heard that story, and then turned over in your bed at night and saw the personification of the character you just heard about, I think you'd be terrified for life. You'd certainly be wetting the bed pretty quickly. I think you'd be terrified for life at that moment. It's a life-changing experience. But that, plus the gruesomeness of Reilly's murder, plus the difficulty in watching the scene with Josefina and Reilly as well. There's so many really good scenes, a really good show. I have to say, I'm excited for what we're going to see. I'm only 4 episodes into this show. We've got 6 more episodes to go. So, nowhere near its heights just yet, as far as I can see, but it's ramping up every week. So definitely definitely very happy to be covering this one. Chris, what do you think overall?
Sehr gut. Yeah. Wunderbar and everything else in between. I'll save you my terrible German accent. Again, if anyone has access, hello. Just from the old 70s. It's so good. BBC comedy. If you want British humor, that's it.
Okay.
And that's where my accents, German and French.
Do not listen to a word he's saying,
no.
fellow dreadful people.
Yes, and that is my terrible German accent. That is the end of it, I swear. No, to talk about this episode, really, it was a tough one at certain parts, and I was probably more down on parts of it last episode than as I come in. So it's kind of like I'm finding that there are highs and lows to this each episode, and the highs for the season are outperforming the lows, and they're not terrible lows. They're just, for me, potentially oh, I wish they had done it this way. I'm not the writer. I'm not the director. I should sit back more. And I think that's what I'm starting to do now, which is, no. This is their run. This was written by John Logan. And I should respect the story he wants to tell at the pace he wants to tell it, because previous knowledge dictates he's good at what he does and he's going to tell a good story as how he does it. So I've now accepted that, and I'm sitting back and sitting with my beer stein and in my gazebo singing some German Steinhall songs. Excellent. I think it's Steinhall songs.
Just Beerhalle. Yeah.
Beerhalle songs.
Absolutely. Yeah. But I know we've been saying that as well. John Logan will tell his story at his pace, but I don't think I was expecting an episode that was crammed with as much as this episode this quickly. I suppose it felt like so much was going on here as well for me. So really good, really good. Let's get on to our feedback section. Penny, for your thoughts. If you have any thoughts on the podcast or on Penny Dreadful City of Angels, email them to us at feedback@tvpodcastindustries.com, or come join us over on our Facebook group at facebook.com/groups/TV Podcast Industries. Or why not go over to us on Twitter at TV Pod Industries. Been live tweeting the episodes each week, but with the weirdness of the release for Penny Dreadful City of Angels, I'm not too sure whether I'm going to be live tweeting it in future. They released the episode on Showtime.com first thing, I think almost 24 hours before it goes on air, which I think is really weird to do. And then when it goes live, most people have already seen the episode.
And it's also not at a it's like Netflix where it goes specifically at like 9 a.m. or 9 p.m. or 12. There's like, we have a launch window because it hasn't gone exactly at a specific time each time.
Well, I think what seems to have happened is it goes live on the channel at 10 p.m. and I think they said to their tech guys, okay, at 1 minute past midnight on Sunday night, you need to release the episode on our on-demand platform so that people who've watched the episode on TV can then watch it on demand. I think what happened is the tech team they said 1 minute past midnight on Sunday. Do they mean Sunday 12:01 a.m. or do they mean Monday 12:01 a.m.? And I think they've just coded it wrong. So I think that's all that's happened. It suddenly gets released, and then sometime in the middle of the day they go, it's out right now, but it's always been out for 4 or 5 hours before they do that.
Okay, I just keep, every time they go, it's out right now, that's when I think they're releasing it, and I'm like, or like that hour, and I'm like, it's just a weird, like, cause that tweet has always been at a very different time, and I'm like,
and cool. It's hours after people are already talking about the episode.
Okay,
But there you go. So I may not be live tweeting again, but if I am, follow us over on TV Pod Industries over at Twitter.
Yes. First up, we have an email from James P. Canisco, who emailed us again with his Pasadena connections, based on last week's episode 3. He had this to say: thanks for reading my notes, guys. No special nuggets this week other than say I loved this episode. The dance scenes were fantastic. Nathan Lane kicking the out of the kid was a little cathartic to my self-quarantined mind for some reason. And he really pulled off being tough. The Santa Monica Pier does have a Ferris wheel and a roller coaster, but the close-up shots of Tiago and Molly on the pier were actually shot about 15 miles south at the Redondo Beach Pier, and that big white building shown from outside that the councilman exercises in is actually City Hall of Los Angeles, dedicated in 1928. Really love the podcast. Thanks so much. One final mention: High School Musical 4, The Dancing with Demons. Thank you so much, Jim, for writing into us. And yes, High School Musical 4, Dancing with Demons. I love it. It is peak perfection. I enjoy it.
Yes. Thank you, Jim, for bringing High School Musical back to Chris. So we will have the unholy trinity of High School Musical, German accents, and off-key singing from now on. This is our own Penny Dreadful.
Absolutely. I'm in my nightmare without a doubt. And we'll probably record it live as well, so I can't even edit it, just to be in my real nightmares.
If anyone wants to write a screenplay for High School Musical 4, Dancing with German Demons, I will do that. I will read your script just for the crack, because I could be Zac Efron, who all face painted red, dancing in a German accent. It would be wunderbar.
Oh no. Thanks very much for that, Jim.
Yeah, thanks so much, Jim.
Our next piece of feedback comes from former co-host of this podcast, Ray. You might be asked back, Ray.
Yes.
He is also the host of the Into the Night, the Moon Knight podcast, and he has some thoughts about episode 3 over in our Facebook group. He says, I've just caught up with episode 2 and 3, and wow, what a joy to jump back into the City of Angels. First off, I loved the dance routine between Mateo and Rio. Yet another character by Natalie Dormer. Not usually into dance numbers, but the classic style and the energy was intoxicating. Molly and Tiago were a great development, and how cruel is Molly's mother taunting her with Popeye's theme? Incredible. Nathan Lane as Lewis is just downright remarkable, and I find myself hanging on his every word. His old school sensibility is just so charming. Finally, the unintentionally funny moment for me was seeing Molly's bodyguard trail both her and Tiago with a stick of fairy floss in hand. Hoping I can watch the subsequent episodes promptly in order to give timely feedback. Keep up the good work, guys. Fairy floss in Australia.
Yeah.
We call it candy floss over here.
Yeah, candy floss.
I think it's candy floss in America as well, but fairy floss, that makes sense.
I literally didn't cop candy floss fairy. Okay, makes more sense now. Thank you.
There you go.
Yeah, thanks, Ronaldo. I think... Yeah, Nathan Lane's been really, really good.
Mm-hmm.
And I think, as Jim mentioned, this, if you've not seen him on Broadway doing serious stuff, I suppose this is many people's first kind of sort of exposure. And he just has a great old school sensibility, as you say.
Yeah.
I love what he's doing, I think, as well in this episode with Benny Berman. It's just really pitched absolutely perfectly by Nathan Lane, for sure.
Yeah. And Mr. Lane, if you want to come on our podcast, obviously we know you're at home in New York at this point in time, doing nothing in quarantine. Actually, not just Mr. Lane. If any of the actors of Penny Dreadful, if you know them and you want to get them just to come on down and give us a quick interview, sure, why not?
Yeah, thanks so much, Ronaldo, for sure. It's really great to get your thoughts on City of Angels, and yeah, hopefully that would be pretty awesome if we got Nathan Lane onto the podcast for a little interviewee element here. I think that would be pretty cool. So, Chris, prepare the email. We also have a voicemail, and just a quick reminder for everyone, if you want to hear your voice on the podcast, your dulcet tones, as it were, in the same way, I believe there were some dulcet tones on episode 3 of City of Angels. You can record a clip of yourself on your phone and email it to us, or you can go to our website at tvpodcastindustries.com and record 90 seconds of your thoughts about the week's episode. We'd love to hear from everyone, but we do have our regular, reoccurring voicemail guest in Steve Brown. It's great to get your voicemail in, Steve. Let's give it a listen.
Hey guys, it's Steve. This is for episode 4, Josefina and... Is it episode 4? Yeah. Josefina and the Holy Spirit. Wow, this episode was really, really good. And I don't know if I'm going to get a chance to watch it again before you guys record. So that's why I'm sending this out on Sunday night. But wow, man, I am just... There was so much stuff in this one that surprised me. And so I want to pick 3 moments off the top of my head that I really thought were really, really good. We've been looking forward to Reilly kind of getting his comeuppance, but wow, that was brutal. That was graphic. I did not expect that Mateo, that level of psychopathy from him. And then, of course, we see the Natalie Dormer, the Elsa scene with Peter Craft in his house. And that was just it was kind of heartbreaking on one hand, but we knew it was coming, that he was they were gonna have that moment, that tryst. And I loved her meeting with the wife, and the wife saying that she wouldn't be the other woman, or however Piper Perabo said it, and so much good stuff in this episode. It's hard to pick just three, but I will pick just a third one, which is I'm really, really glad that we see Tiago and Molly there at the end, washing dishes together, seemingly like they're kind of back together, like he's kind of accepted the fact that she's flawed, that she's not evil, she's just flawed. And that makes her a great character. So I can't wait to hear your guys' discussion of this episode, because there was so much in it, and I can't wait to hear what you guys thought. Talk to you later.
Thanks so much, Steve. Steve also added, I totally forgot in my voicemail to mention the shoulder block that Elsa gives to Craft's wife. Perfectly played by Natalie Dormer and Piper Perabo. Yeah, really good. I didn't think it was so much a shoulder block. I actually thought Piper Perabo or Linda Craft, I actually think she did do, that NFL shoulder barge on her. So, but yeah, Elsa certainly stood up. I think Piper Perabo, what a great role. As I say, Queen Bee and Stings.
Yeah, so
although probably Natalie Dormer will sting her back even worse.
Oh, definitely.
And really good to hear from you, Steve. And definitely, this is a wow episode. There are so many moments here that make you pause for thought, think about what's possible coming up, shock you, challenge you, make you kind of go a little gooey inside. I think it's really good. By gooey inside, I meant Tiago and Molly at the end, where it's like, and then there's like the holding on for dear life as Mateo is psychoing it to the max, and you're kind of Elsa and Peter going, if only Linda could see you now, she would crucify you.
Yeah, absolutely.
So from one gooey moment to the other, let's move on to something less gooey and more liquid. I do believe it's time to go to the old beer hall and down to Penny Dreadful Pub Quiz.
Yeah, welcome, fellow Dreadfuls, to the Penny Dreadful Pub Quiz. Grab a steiner of beer and, of course, head on over to the Crimson Cat, winking for this week's pub quiz, dare I say it. Remember, you can send in your answer to this episode 4's question, by email to feedback@tvpodcastindustries.com. And of course, we will have some Penny Dreadful goodies for the winner of the pub quiz. Remember, a point per question, unless otherwise stated by myself, of course. So the question for episode 4, Josephine and the Holy Spirit. Just between us, girls, what drink does Linda Craft quaff during her son's birthday party?
Excellent. And, we have now got a reputation of asking a question and then it being fully laid out in the next episode. So, this may be fully laid out next episode. John, gives the question one more time.
Well, Penny Dreadfuls, just between us, girls, what drink does Linda Craft quaff during her son's birthday party?
Mm-hmm.
Yes.
And if you've been listening to our podcast for a fair few of our episodes, you will know that I have said that this is one of my favorite cocktails.
There you go. Nice hint, Chris. Nice hint.
Yes, good hint.
Thanks so much for the pub quiz question, John. Hopefully we'll get loads of entries for this one for the Penny Dreadful pub quiz.
Exactly. Whether Linda was quaffing it to sort of dull the sound of kids, or whether she was just doing it to dull the sound of singing Nazis in her back garden. Who knows? Or maybe the local gossip from the Pasadena area. But certainly she does like this drink a lot.
Definitely. I do love that moment as Elsa arrives with Frank and goes to Dr. Craft. I need to meet your wife. And he just has this look. Rory Kinnear just does this look where he looks around the entire area going, I have no idea where that woman is. I just don't know.
She is at the bar.
Excellent. Thanks so much for joining us, fellow Penny Faithful. It's been really good having you on board for this season. Please stay in contact with us and tell us your feedback as you go through the episode. Hope you stay subscribed to the podcast. If you enjoy what you hear, why not share it with your friends or leave us a review review over on iTunes. You can leave us a 5-star review and your thoughts about what we're doing right, hopefully. Or email us and tell us what we're doing wrong. We might change it in the future.
Yes, we've done nothing wrong. Have we? Have we?
And as I mentioned before, you can also join us over on Patreon if you want to hear our thoughts about Captain America Winter Soldier. We should be releasing that over the next couple of weeks as well. We'll be back next week with Penny Dreadful City of Angels, Episode 5, Children of the Royal Sun, which comes out on May 24th.
Yes, thank you so much. And I will end by saying, Auf Wiedersehen, goodbye. I know, I can't remember was it goodbye? So
what? You can't remember the tune or lyrics to a song, Chris?
To you and you and you and you and you. Oh yeah, goodbye.
Oh my goodness! I think my eardrums have just blown.
Or you have just smashed a glass, as I said you would, and just gouged them out. Either way, we're just staying in goodbye.
Yeah. Well, fellow Dreadfuls, it's a pleasure speaking with you, and indeed maybe even sharing in your pain at such musical renditions that Chris will provide on the Dreadful podcast. But remember, keep hiding, and above all else, keep high-dying.
Nice.
Bye.
Bye.